Chapter 104. Please click the subscribe link, and like and share our story. Thank you. Blood, death, and suffering were all she could see. The sight of her compatriots killing monsters and gods while being in turn killed, filled her with cold determination as she met 3 lesser Greek gods on the field of battle. With her claws and serpent-headed hair tore and devoured the lesser monsters that crowded her. Foul spawn of Medusa, you shall face the same fate as your progenitor. A god screamed as Medusa finally captured the much smaller god in her 50-meter-tall-sized form, and as she held the god in both of her hands, ignoring monsters and gods alike as they attacked her. She ripped the god in half, spraying her voluptuous chest with the divine ichor that sprayed everywhere. With the howling screams that filled the realm at the true death of a god's final death scream died off. Who said I wasn't already dead? Just this opportunity to tear apart you Greek gods, even if Poseidon isn't also here, is worth any pain and another death to add to my tally. Medusa hissed with her magic-filled gaze, freezing the lesser monsters with magic resistances not strong enough to shrug off her passive certification. But you aren't Medusa. Or at least this multiverse's Medusa. A voice coldly spoke out, and Medusa looked up with her snake-headed hair hissing with primal wrath as Athena hovered above the large goddess, looking down on her with disgust and disdain. Medusa's snake features melded with multiple owl wings as she took on a more bestial form as she stared up at Athena with untold fury at the uncaring goddess who deliberately flew above her to look down upon her. A snarl rang out as Medusa's large wings lifted her massive form into the air, and Athena sent a piercing ray of light that pierced through Medusa's wings and her arm and stabbed through her chest, making her scream in pain. But the monstrous gorgon swallowed her agony as she grinned a bloody smile as she met Athena's eyes. You still only focus on what's in front of your face, you short-sighted bitch. She hissed, and Athena's eyes widened, but before she could react, several magical arrows smashed into her owl wings, exploding and sending her hurtling through the air. Only we can bully our little sister, you delusional little owl, a smug voice rang out, and standing upon the wide shoulders of the gorgon with one each sister was her sisters Urael and Stheno, fully incarnated as lesser goddess armed with bows that rang with subtle divinity. Dash. Ha ha ha, it's just like back in Troy except with even better prey. A voice rang out with glee as he used his spear and his extreme speed to carve lines through the armies of monsters, and he noticed he had made a new friend as another spear wielder took his actions as a sort of challenge, as although he wasn't as fast as him, his spear work was just as deadly, if not slightly more so. Tell me, friend, who am I fighting besides on our birthday of a new life? The green-haired Achilles spoke joyfully as he used his spear to carve out the heart of a giant, while his new blue-haired friend used his crimson spear that sang of death and glory to decapitate a hellhound. I am Ireland's child of light, Cuchulainn. But we are cut from the same cloth, so just call me Serpented-headed. Cu roared with joyful laughter as his eyes became red slits as he and his spear's bloodlust reached the peak. The 2 lancers gleefully tore through the monster army, uncaring of wounds, as the many more support-oriented incarnated servants healed any wounds Cu developed, while Achilles simply didn't get hurt at all by the monsters due to his blessings. Their glorious battle was only halted when Apollo disengaged from battling Dr. Fate, who rejoined the battle and was prevented from helping Jake fight Zeus. Fate was then forced to fight Hermes, who was fighting both the Sorcerer Supreme of the Earth as well as the Flash, due to Hermes having many of the same abilities a Speed Force user could use with far more experience due to being a god for untold millennia. I am going to feast on your flesh, child of Luf, and regain my divinity. Apollo roared madly as he smashed into Cuchulainn with fists made out of powerful fire, but everyone could tell it was lacking the essence of a sun god's all-consuming flame, so Cuchulainn grinned madly as his spear glowed with crimson light. Ha ha ha, on my fucking first new day of life a broken sun god delivers himself to my spear. Hear that, teacher? I will join the ranks of god slayers today. Cuchulainn howled as his spear burned brightly with demonic crimson light, and as a massive ball of flames filled his sight, Cuchulainn roared with his spear shooting forward through the flames. Go! Gi-balg! Dash! Tesla helped divert Zeus's lightning into his forces. Tamamo keep the seals around the realm so they get no more reinforces. A blonde beauty wielding a French flag ordered, and the congregation of the more supportive magical-oriented servants followed her orders as Jeanne d'Arc followed her overworking revelation skill to know exactly where everyone needed to put their best efforts. Artoria, take your knights and fight Hades in the western quadrant. He is pushing through the surface of the realm with an army of the undead and being followed by an army of demons. Jeanne ordered as blood seeped from her nose as the words of the one true God were coming too quickly, and the blessing of perfect knowledge wasn't a simple thing. Then Jean looked to her sister, a reflection of herself but marred by suffering, and she smiled sadly as she ordered her to the battlefield as well. Little sister, we need you to keep the coming Cerberus busy with your demonic flames that will restrain it, she said, and Jalter just snorted. Fine, but don't think you can just order me around. And I am not your fucking little sister, she said backhandedly as she charged into the battle where Jean said Hades and his forces would be pushing through. Thus Jean ordered glorious heroes to fight to the death with the forces of the Greek pantheon as great wizards like Merlin and dozens of overlegends met the magic of Hecate and other gods, keeping them restrained and from cursing the heroes that were directly fighting gods and monsters alike. But stirring within the throne of heroes were beings of great power, who stoically watched as Jake was pushed back and broken down by his inexperience, as it was clear he had never fought such a high-level battle against what amounted to being a multiversal entity that was sandbagging due to wanting to devour the realm he was invading. Watching and taking his measure. But eventually, one being was stirred to action with the throne shuddered with her movements, and with a shrill cry, she was birthed anew into the realm and instantly heralded a tidal wave of primordial life's mud which tore across the surface but was instantly met with a wave of clear salty water as a bearded man that was frowning rode into the realm on a carriage drawn by divine dolphins the size of elephants. So much for this being a newborn realm with only a single defender of note, Poseidon said sarcastically as he eyed his two brothers that were locked in battle with beings that although were certainly not their match, it was clear the battle wouldn't be ending any time soon. Either way, the god of the sea raised his trident and created a powerful barrier as he blocked a pink ray of power that slammed into the barrier hard enough to send his carriage back several miles before the divine dolphins were able to stop their backward momentum in the air. Awe. Tiamat spoke in her primordial tongue that was born before language was even invited, but Poseidon, being a divine being, translated her voice that no mortal could understand with her feminine voice speaking into his mind. You shall not harm the mortals so long as I live. Poseidon chuckled as he hefted his divine trident and eyed the teal blue-haired woman that had her arms bound across her chest, but his face turned stern as he dove out of his chariot intent upon impaling the goddess who stood before him with his divine trident, as he recognized her as a worthy opponent with how she herself was a goddess of the sea.